Today, it's a proud privilege to welcome a friend and an old colleague, Vijay Bhat. He and I were in advertising in the, at least I was in the 80s, and he also was there in the 80s and 90s. And a remarkable person who's, I don't know, been through tough health issues, which could have been terminal, but he's come back and he's hit the world with a bang. And today he is one of the most sought after story to tell. And I will not say anything about the journey, because it's best heard from him. So without taking much of time, over to you, Vijay.
Thank you, George. And thank you for inviting me. Thank you for that very kind introduction. It's very nice to see so many people on the call. मैं पहली बात ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि मैं इंग्लिश में बोलूँगा, मेरी हिंदी उतनी अच्छी नहीं है, तो हिंदी में गलती हुई तो मुझे आप प्लीज माफ करना, और मुझे कोई आपके प्रश्न समझ में ना आए तो फिर मैं श्रुति से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वो मुझे ट्रांसलेट करके बताएं क्वेश्चन, but I should be able to understand the questions at least, even if I'm not able to answer them in Hindi. So George told me, he said that, you know, you guys do this on a once a week basis and you have some amazing speakers. So I'm very privileged to be among those heavy hitters that you have heard before. He also said that he would like me to share my story, that what has happened with me has happened to many other people, and it might be interesting and useful for all of you to hear. I would like to start by saying that my story is basically one where I had a significant health setback, which is that I was diagnosed with cancer, colon cancer, when I just turned 40 years of age. So this was in the year 2001. तो देखो मैंने आपको मेरा age भी बता दिया. I was at that time living in London, and as George said, I was working for the same ad agency that he and I worked for many years, which is called Ogilvy and Mather. And I would say that my story over the last now almost 20 years is a story that I can divide into 5 parts. So instead of telling you in great detail what happened then, because 20 years की मैं कहानी सुनाता जाऊं तो फिर हमको 1 घंटे से ज़्यादा ज़रूर लगने वाला है. So I won't do that. I will tell you my story in a few chunks. I would say that the first chunk was maybe about 6 months to 1 year after my cancer diagnosis, which was an extremely difficult period because, like for everybody else, cancer diagnosis was also a big shock for me. I had never had a serious illness before, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to do. My first thought was, chalo, abhi hamara time aa gaya, I'm going to die. And then what will happen to my family? And, you know, all those questions. I was emotionally in a very bad state. But I was very lucky. For one reason was that my medical surgery was successful. And because my medical surgery was successful, मुझे डॉक्टरों ने ऑप्शन दिया कि आप कीमोथेरेपी लेना चाहोगे या नहीं लेना चाहोगे. Now this is very unusual because if I was living in America or if I was living in India or almost anywhere else, मुझे ये ऑप्शन कोई नहीं देता. मगर यूके में डॉक्टरों ने मुझे ये ऑप्शन दिया. And when I did my research and when I got a second opinion, third opinion, I realized that the difference between taking chemo and not taking chemo was very small. तो मैंने decide कर दिया कि I will not take chemo. Now the question became, doctor said fine, ठीक है, आप नहीं लेना चाहोगे तो मत लीजिए आप, आपकी मर्जी. So then I said, doctor, what should I do? They said nothing, you go home, lead a normal life, hope and pray that it won't come back. So I said, but doctor, I'm not a hope and pray kind of guy. आप मुझे बताओ, what should I do? You're telling me that my chance of recurrence is 30%. I want to bring it to 0. मुझे क्या करना चाहिए? So they said, there's nothing more that Western medicine can do. We can't tell you anything more. So then we went and talked to Nilima's yoga center. At that time, she was learning yoga at the Shivananda Yoga Ashram in London. तो हमने उनको जाके पूछा कि हमको क्या करना चाहिए. तो उन्होंने बताया कि हम आपको जरूर योगा और आयुर्वेदा के बारे में बता सकते हैं, लेकिन we think you should go and meet this Chinese doctor who practices in London. He is a Western medicine doctor and a Chinese medicine doctor. So we went and met him because we had nothing to lose. And for the first time, he told us something which has remained to me to this day, which is that you need to manage your immunity. If you keep your immunity in good condition, then that is your best defense against cancer. Now, I find this in a way quite amusing in today's world of COVID, where सब लोग immunity की बात कर रहे हैं. Food immunity, rest immunity, exercise immunity, this immunity, that immunity. But I was introduced to the idea of immunity 20 years ago by this Chinese doctor. The other thing that was very useful for me was that I was able to see a psychologist. And many people who get cancer or who get serious illness, they don't think about the mental or the emotional part, the manasik health. So I was able to see a psychologist, and that was very helpful for me. And I was also able to get help from a Jesuit priest who was also the principal of St. Xavier's College in Bombay, where Nilima and I, my wife and I, had both studied. So I got help from the Western doctor, I got help from a Chinese doctor, I got help from a psychologist, and I got help from somebody who was a spiritual teacher, who was a Jesuit priest. So मुझे उस वक्त समझ में आया कि when you have to look at yourself to heal from a serious illness, you have to look at yourself and all these fronts. You cannot only be looking at physical healing. So this was a very big, important lesson for me. And I would say that this was the first stage or the first phase in my cancer journey. The second phase in my cancer journey was that my company, the same company that I was with, they then transferred me to Hong Kong. And because I realized that the kind of job that I was doing, I may not be able to do if my health was not very good. Because in that job, I had a global job. I was traveling 20 days a month, and it was very stressful and very strenuous for me. So I took a slightly lighter job, and that job posted me in Hong Kong. So in my second phase, because Hong Kong is part of China, I could continue my Chinese medicine with a doctor there. And by this time, I was trying out many other treatments and approaches and techniques, whether it is Reiki, whether it is so many different techniques I tried for myself. And slowly, we began to realize that there is a lot that you can do if you are struck with a serious illness like cancer. And so as we explored it, and as I tried it, as we met so many practitioners, we met so many experts, we realized that there slowly a kind of a framework began to emerge, which was not something that we had seen outside, but we were beginning to create a framework. And it was very interesting how this organically developed. And I will tell you a little bit about the framework, which uh, which basically क्या होता है कि our immune system is compromised by stress, and the challenge is that stress is not one thing. Stress can happen to you at 5 levels. So for example, you can have physical stress, you know, in Hindi you would call it sharirik, you know, physical, having to do with the body. The second is you can have manasik or mental stress. The third is you can have emotional stress, bhavatmik. The fourth is you can have relational stress, which means if your relationships are not very good, either at home or at work, that can also cause you stress. And the fifth is what we call spiritual stress, adhyatmic. And any of these stresses or a combination of these stresses can compromise your immunity. But the beautiful part is that the opposite is also true. If you remove that stress and if you can build your strengths, then your immunity can also improve. So we began to really see how stress and immunity are very closely connected. So this was my second phase of my cancer journey. The third phase of the cancer journey is when we returned to India, because even my job in Hong Kong was too stressful, too strenuous. My health was not very good. And I had to make a choice. And this was a very difficult choice to make. Do I choose life or lifestyle? And many people don't have to make this choice, but I had to. And obviously, if you have that choice, would you choose life or would you choose lifestyle? Naturally, we would all choose life. And so I also chose life. And as a result of making that choice, I gave up my job with Ogilvy after 22 years. We moved back to India, we moved to Bangalore, and I decided that I did not want to be in the advertising profession anymore. बहुत हो चुका था, 25 साल हो गए थे being in advertising. So I decided to shift into the leadership consulting coaching space. What happened then was that I started developing my second career. My first career was in advertising. I started developing my second career, and that second career took me a few years to develop. And alongside, we were now starting to teach this approach of stress, immunity, illness, cancer to many people. So, for example, there were small groups we were talking to, big groups we were talking to some individuals, we were talking to, we started actually testing out this approach and we started to see some good results. So I would say that the third phase of my life, of the cancer journey, was our Bangalore years, where we developed this approach, where we tried out this approach, and that culminated in the writing of our book. So Nilima and I co-authored a book. I will show you the book. Here it is. It's called My Cancer Is Me. And this book got published in the year 2013. And in this book, we have laid out our approach and we have laid out our plan of how somebody can work with cancer. So this was the third phase of my cancer journey. The fourth phase of my cancer journey was from the year 2013 onwards, when we relocated to Mumbai from Bangalore. Mumbai is where I was born. मुझे ये जगह बहुत पसंद भी है और मुझे ये जगह बहुत अच्छी तरह से मैं जानता भी हूँ. So we moved back to Mumbai in 2013. By that time, our children had also grown up. They had all gone to college. So it was only Nilima and me in a way. So we also decided at that time to simplify and downsize our life. So in 2013, we moved to Mumbai. And when we did that, it was another phase, because I then started to see that I want to spend less and less time in the corporate world doing leadership coaching and consulting, and I wanted to spend more and more time doing cancer related work. So the period from 2013 to 2017, I was slowly shifting my priorities into the cancer related work, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it soon. And 2017 to now, I would say, is the fifth stage where now, just like George gave up advertising and started doing work towards visual impairment almost full time, I am also now almost full time doing this cancer related work. I spent only about 10% of my time doing corporate leadership work, and about 80% or 90% of my time I'm now doing cancer related work. So let me just summarize the journey in 5 phases. The first phase was the very early phase in London. The second phase was really Hong Kong, where our approach became clearer. The third phase was coming back to India, Bangalore, from 2004 to about 2013, where again our process and protocol became clear. We tried it out, we wrote the book. The fourth phase was 2014 to 17, when we moved to Bombay. And the fifth phase, we are still in Bombay, but now I'm spending most of my time doing cancer related work rather than corporate work. Now, many people ask me the question, what are your learnings? What have you learned in this process in these 19 or 20 years? So there are some important learnings which I would like to share with you. The first learning is really that, like any crisis, if today abhi aap COVID dekhoge, so like any crisis, cancer is also a crisis, and cancer wakes you up. वो आपको जगा देता है, and you are then forced to look at your life very differently. And so the question that I ask people is, what will it take for you to wake up? What will it take for you to really look at your life in a holistic way, in a healthy way? Or are you just comfortable just carrying on with life as it might be? So this is a very big lesson and learning that I had, which is, in my case, it took cancer. Cancer ke bina, I would not be the person I am today. And so I give a lot of credit to cancer. In fact, I like to say that cancer healed me rather than me defeating or overcoming or fighting with cancer. That is the first big lesson. The second lesson I learned is that there are 3 mindsets that I have come across. And maybe this will be relevant to all of you as well. Maybe you also see these 3 mindsets when it comes to the world of visual impairment. The first mindset is that of a victim. Now, I don't know what the right word for victim is in Hindi. Maybe it is something like zindagi ka shikar banna. You feel as if life is going to attack you and you're a victim of life. And people who have this victim mindset, they are always being defeated by life. वो जिंदगी से हार जाते हैं. And that mindset is not very good for healing. That mindset is not very good for recovering. That mindset is not very good for bouncing back. The second mindset that we see is called the survivor mindset. And the survivor mindset, again, is a mindset that is characterized by a lot of courage and resilience. So, sahanshilata. It's a kind of a mindset that says, no, I'm not going to let this defeat me. I'm going to fight. I'm going to win against this. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be courageous, right? So the survivor mindset is something that we see a lot of, and it's a good thing. It's very, very good. But in my opinion, it is not enough. And the reason why I say it is not enough is because, see, cancer is a disease of your own body. Cancer बाहर से नहीं आता है. Cancer आपके अंदर से जगता है. So if you are going to fight, if you are going to defeat, who are you defeating? Who are you fighting? You can't fight yourself, because cancer is part cancer is a part of you. So we believe that there is a third attitude, and this attitude is what we call the attitude of a thriver. Now again, there is no good Hindi word for thriver. You know, people will say unnati karna, ya phalna phoolna, so I don't know what is the best way to describe it, but a thriver is somebody who takes the adversity, who takes the difficulty, and then turns it to his own advantage. So whatever setback life has given us, a thriver is somebody who's able to use it as a platform for their own growth. Now, for example, why am I so inspired by George? I'm inspired by George because he displays all the characteristics of a thriver. That he has not only accepted and embraced his physical condition, but he has actually turned it into a way by which not only has he grown, but he has also helped many other people grow. This is the true hallmark of a thriver, and therefore I salute you, George, for what you have done. You are a great example to many. But to come back to the point, you will see that whenever human beings are faced with really big adversities, they will demonstrate one of these three attitudes, either that of a victim, or that of a survivor, or that of a thriver. And my belief is that just like I saw myself as a victim in my early days, I then became a survivor and I kind of took it on. And then over a period of time, I realized that, hey, it's not enough to be a survivor. So my hope is that other people who are struck with serious illness, or other people who may even be struck with disabilities, will be able to go from being a victim to being a survivor to being a thriver. And the work that I do today is actually to be able to help people who are struck with cancer to go from being a victim to a survivor to a thriver. So the program that we offer is in fact called the Thriver Program, how to become a cancer thriver. So that was my third big lesson. The fourth big lesson is that I learned was that, see, when people have, समझो किसी को कोई और बीमारी हो गई, लेट्स से जॉन्डिस हो गया, या लेट्स से आपको हार्ट का कोई कंडीशन हुआ, so then what happens there is that after you get the treatments, then the disease is gone and you can go back to a normal life. So most illnesses are like, हमारे रास्तों पर आपको स्पीड ब्रेकर मिलता है या एक पॉटहोल मिलता है. So it is like that. It is a bump in the road. You go over the bump in the road, you go through the pothole, and then it's over. It's behind you, right? But cancer is not like that, and many disabilities are not like that. They are lifelong, and that means you have to take the fork in the road. That means you have to make a change in your life as a result of this illness and use that illness for your own growth. So I like to say that cancer for me, and I like to present cancer also as a fork in the road, which means that you have to do something very different with your life. And it is particularly true because, like cancer, or serious illnesses like cancer, you have to face your own mortality. You have to face your own likelihood of death. And that changes your attitude, because you then start to value life a lot more. If you have not come close to death, most people don't value life all that much. But if you are at risk of losing something very precious like your life, or maybe one of your faculties, then you value what you are missing so much, and then life becomes so much more precious to you and for you. And as I said, in this context, what we have to do, whether it is cancer, whether it is COVID, whether it is any other kind of illness, is we really have to manage our immunity. So our program is taking all these into account. Our program basically says, look, choose life, not lifestyle. Focus on your life. Number two, we say, look, every crisis, whether it is cancer or COVID or anything else, it will wake you up, and it will wake you up for your own good. So look at it that way. Number three, we say it's natural to be a victim in the early days. It's natural to feel like a victim in the early days, but you can't remain a victim forever. You probably have to become a survivor, then you have to become a thriver, and then you can inspire many other people around you to be able to do the same. The fourth thing that we say is, don't look at cancer as a bump in the road. Treat it like a fork in the road. Treat it like an opportunity to change the direction of your life and to do something really meaningful for yourself and for others. And the last thing we say is that, look, the best defense, the best thing you can do for yourself is to keep your immunity in its top condition. And to keep your immunity in its top condition, you have to look after yourself at the physical level, at the mental level, at the emotional level, at the relational level, and at the spiritual level. So this is in a nutshell what we say to people. The other question that many people ask me and is really about what kind of help did you get, and did you get good help? Yes, the answer is I got extremely good help, as I said, from so many people. And the point I want to make to all of you who is listening on this call is, there is help available. You have to go look for it, and you will get the help you need. I mean, if you look at the amazing work that the SCORE Foundation and Eyeway do, is to help people. And similarly, from a cancer standpoint, there are many NGOs, there are many trusts, there are many foundations, there are many practitioners who are available to help you. And I learned that if I asked for that help, if I went to people and knocked on their door and asked for that help, I did get the help that I need. So, in a nutshell, this is really my story, and I would like to end it here. I know it's about 4:35. George, you had given me 40 minutes to speak, so I timed myself to uh, a little below that. So I'm happy to take any questions from you, George, or from you, Shruti, or from the audience, and I'll be happy to answer them.